Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment of our show brought to you by Safety Systems. We are almost to the end of 2021, so as we look ahead to 2022, I want you to ask Safety Systems what they can do for you and your business. Security systems, yep. Communications and state-of-the-art media rooms, they've set those up for some of the biggest clients in town. Fire safety systems, obviously they do that. Testing the fire safety equipment, you're supposed to do that on a regular basis. They come in, they can actually do the testing for you. Anything you need, they can do it. Safety Systems. I always tell you about calling them about your home for a personal need, but if you're a business owner, Safety Systems can take care of you as well. Call VFL JJ Surlis, ask them what Safety Systems can do for your business. All right, let's take a look here around the SEC. Now, again, the show was taped a few nights ago, so this is where things stood when we taped. Probably things haven't shifted too much, I'm guessing, by Sunday morning. But who's doing better, who's doing worse? And you see, because we don't know when they're going to be joining the conference, I've gone ahead and put Texas and Oklahoma in here because it might as well start following their recruiting because some of these guys, they'll be in here in the league at some point.
Could have happened between the taping and
That's right. It may have announced, yeah. So Georgia number 1, Texas A&M 2, Alabama number 3 in the nation. Texas, bad year, but they're 7th in recruiting. We'll get into why that may be. NIL might have something to do with that. But number 13, Missouri. I'll just start right there in terms of surprising, punching above their weight. Ryan, how is Missouri at number 13?
Eli Drinkwitz and that staff, they've gotten after it pretty good. His first year, I think it was, they went head-to-head with Alabama for a cornerback that was pretty highly ranked down the stretch and beat out Alabama for a guy they would have taken at the time. So that was an early sign to me that Missouri was actually going to be a little bit more of a factor in recruiting. They've taken advantage of what's in state, though. A few 4-stars and a 5-star in state that they were able to keep home. That's the key. And Tennessee, it's kind of a roadmap for what Tennessee could do. There's enough talent in Tennessee a lot of years for them to kind of follow that model. If they can do that, they can certainly be taking advantage of that and move up the way Missouri has this year. But 13, we're definitely not used to seeing that from Missouri.
Okay, let me ask our director here, Kevin. I might have thrown you, and I apologize. We need to go back and forth with that graphic if we can get it back up there. Yeah, he's a pro. Look at this. All right, so LSU 15th with a coaching change. That's not bad considering you're and it's probably going to climb now that Brian Kelly's in there.
Yep.
Kentucky 16th. That's one of their best classes. You guys surprised by the job Mark Stoops continues to do with recruiting, gentlemen?
Stoops knows what he knows what he do best, and so he goes and get guys that fits that motto. And I think it's an easy sell to young men that's going to play in that kind of system, that comes from that kind of system, where we're going to run the ball a whole lot, and we're going to play good defense. And I think he went and got recruits that can buy into that system, and I think that's his selling point.
And he's going a little bit north and saying, come play in the SEC, right? So, I mean, he's kind of gated off a territory and said, we're going to focus our energy in this area, and we're going to win in that area. And that's where they're looking. And so they have a unique pitch that's really set to those guys. It's, you don't want to play for Ohio State. If you want to play in the big boy league, come here. And that's their pitch.
I lived there, and that used to be where Michigan would go get all their players out of Ohio, Michigan State, Wisconsin. Everybody went into Ohio. And I've still got friends in Columbus media up there, sports guys, who are blown away by the fact that Kentucky has shot above all those other programs in terms of being the number 2 choice in Ohio, which says a lot about Mark Stoops. Let's take a look at this once again. Just you guys tell me. Other surprising, you get Arkansas, Tennessee, South Carolina all there together. Oklahoma's dropping like a stone with the Lincoln Riley news. But in terms of disappointments, Ole Miss and Auburn, I mean, Florida, we know their situation, but Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin, 31st. Auburn, 34th. Boy, Brian Harson's going to be persona non grata down there if you don't do better than that. Your thoughts, guys, on Vince, Ole Miss and Auburn being that far down right now?
Yeah, Ole Miss, considering the success they've had on the field, being so topical nationally with Lane Kiffin, a lot of desire to be a part of it as a player, but that's not translating into recruiting. So, they depend on the JUCO sometimes, the in-state, and if that's not cashing in for them, it's very difficult. And for Auburn and Florida, unacceptable to be below Florida. It doesn't matter the circumstances for their fan base. If you're below Vanderbilt in the recruiting rankings, especially this late, just not going to fly.
Marlon, you played for Lane Kiffin for his 1 year here. Are you surprised that he doesn't have a better recruiting class?
Super surprised. because when I think back to my time with Lane Kiffin, it was short, but our time with Lane Kiffin, we had a lot of top guys that was coming in that if he would have stayed, he would have flipped those guys, or those guys would have never made it to Florida or Florida State, to pick out a few in particular. So I thought with Lane and where they are right now and the bowl game they're playing in, the season they had, that is pretty surprising to me.
Maybe he misses your old buddy Ed Orgeron.
Yeah. They might
He's
reunite
open.
now.
He's out there. He's still go get him.
Your guys' thoughts on Auburn and Ole Miss?
I'm surprised. I've as long as I've done this for a living, Auburn has always been
Top 15.
reliably top 15, often top 10. So for them to be down there is shocking, and it's been that way throughout the year. They were down in the 40s and 50s not too long ago, so they've just kind of gradually, slowly built up to the 30s. So it's really not been impressive at any point. That's concerning to me, and you wonder about that staff's fit in the SEC. Ole Miss, I'm not surprised. I think that job has a little bit of a glass ceiling on it, I think, in some ways that Lane Kiffin's finding out the hard way.
But I thought it would be higher than, 30th, 31st.
Yeah. Now, certainly I
when
thought
you're tearing it up and going to the Sugar Bowl.
I thought top 25 was realistic for them, but not surprised it's a little lower.
Will, you've got connections down
Yeah,
there.
what's most likely hurt them, I think the South Panola Batesville High School is usually where Mississippi State
that's it.
and Ole Miss got a lot of their talent. Those schools haven't been as good these last few years, and I think that's really where hurt them because, there were at least 3 or 4 guys from each one of those schools that was a 4 or 5-star guy coming out every single year. And if those guys aren't on top of it, that hurts them.
And I'd be interested, Vince brought up the JUCO thing. Mississippi's like the JUCO capital of the world. They're 500 down there, and they usually crank them out to State and Ole Miss. So that would be one to check to see how those programs, are they stocked full at this moment. Tell you what, when we come back, let's talk about in-state recruiting here in Tennessee. Is this staff making the connections necessary to improve in-state recruiting long term? And I want to get Marlon's take on this because as a former high school head coach in this state, I've heard some horror stories from him about previous coaches. We'll see what he thinks about this current staff. Come on back on the Sports Show.